Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to dive into complex source material, could be historical docs, could be literary giants, and pull out what you really need to know.
And today we're tackling a big one, a really big one.
We certainly are. We are strapping in for a deep descent into one of the most, I think, explosive and just enduring stories ever written. Alexandre Dumas' 1844 masterpiece, The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, it's so much more than just a revenge story, isn't it? It's this huge epic covering psychological transformation, massive political shifts, and, well, just unbelievable wealth.
Right.
When you think about adventure literature, Monte Cristo really stands out. It's right up there with the Three Musketeers, partly because it weaves these grand themes together with such intense personal stakes.
That's exactly what we want to unpack. We're going to dissect the sources, look at how Dumas actually did it, how he took this pretty chilling real-life story of betrayal and just spun it into the ultimate tale of revenge, sophisticated, decades-long revenge.
hmm We want to get beyond just what Dantes does and really dig into the how. How did he engineer it all? The perfect downfall for each enemy.
The basic story is just so compelling, isn't it? You've got Edmond Dantes, this young, bright, innocent sailor.
Certainly innocent.
Yeah, and he gets betrayed purely out of jealousy and greed, thrown into the infamous Chateau d'If, just disappears.
Right. Forgotten.
Yeah.
But then he escapes, finds this absolutely staggering fortune, and spends, what, decades methodically planning and executing the ruin of the four men who destroyed his life.
And to really get the setup, you have to understand the politics of the time. The timeline is just so critical here.
Absolutely. It all kicks off in 1815. Specifically, right around that incredibly tense moment when Napoleon escaped from Elba.
The 100 Days.
Exactly, the 100 Days. And the story runs all the way through to about 1839. So you're covering the Bourbon Restoration, then Louis Philippe I. It's a period of huge upheaval in France.
And that instability, that political back and forth, that's what his enemies actually use against him, right?
Precisely. In 1815, France was just swinging wildly between supporting Napoleon and these ultra-royalists. Your entire future, maybe even your life, could hang on who you were seen talking to or, like in Dante's case, carrying a letter for.
Even if you didn't know what was in it.
Exactly. He basically walks straight into this political bear crap he doesn't even see.
Okay, so let's talk about the author, Alexandre Dumas. Born 1802. I mean, what a character. He was just this force of nature, incredibly prolific, right? Novels, plays.
Oh, massively. He was churning out hits, The Black Tulip, The Three Musketeers, obviously. The sheer volume is kind of mind-boggling, even today.
He was a proper literary celebrity back then, making huge amounts of money, commanding massive fees.
He absolutely was, earning what would be millions in 19th century money. But here's the kicker, the sort of tragic irony.
Yeah.
Despite all that success, despite writing about these vast fortunes like Monte Cristo's, his own finances were a mess.
Ah, the classic artist story. Made a fortune, spent a fortune.
Exactly. He admitted it himself. Total extravagance, grand houses, incredibly generous, always spending. So even though he earned millions, he died in 1870. Well, pretty broke, actually.
Wow. Quite a contrast to the Count himself.
A huge contrast. And, that kind of output, writing at that pace for serialized publication, it wasn't something one person could realistically do alone.
Which brings us to his collaborator, Auguste Maquet.
Right. Maquet was crucial. He worked closely with Dumas from about 1839 to 1851.
And he wasn't just like an assistant.
Oh, no, much more than that. He was really the engine room, you could say. He did a lot of the heavy lifting, the deep historical research, digging up these amazing true stories like the Picot case that inspired Monte Cristo. He'd draft plot outlines.
Okay, so Maquet laid the foundation.
He did. And then Dumas, the master craftsman, would take that detailed factual base and just breathe life into it. That distinctive Dumas style, the snappy dialogue, the relentless pace, the sheer energy that was Dumas.
A kind of literary factory, almost. Perfectly tuned for the market at the time.
You could say that. A factory of genius, maybe.
And that market had a very specific way of consuming stories, didn't it? This wasn't like buying a finished book off the shelf.
Not at all. It was a weekly, sometimes daily, event. The novel was serialized in the journal Des Débats between 1844 and 1846. They called it the Folletin Novelesco.
The Folletin. So like chapters published in the newspaper.
Exactly. Usually printed right at the bottom of the page. Think of it as the 19th century equivalent of, I don't know, a hit streaming show dropping episodes weekly.
Creates huge buzz. People waiting for the next installment.
Absolutely. You had to buy the paper to see what happened next. Cliffhangers were key. It drove massive public engagement.
But did the literary elite take it seriously, or was it seen as just pop fiction.
That's a great point. Often, yeah, critics at the time could be pretty dismissive. They saw the Folletin format as maybe simplistic, overly sensational, sometimes implausible. Mass entertainment, not high art.
But Monte Cristo feels different.
It does, and many recognize that. It really transcended the typical Folletin. Big thinkers like Umberto Eco later on specifically argued it was way above what he called simple, degraded narrativity.
Hmm.
He saw the depth, the complex structure, the profound themes. It wasn't just pulp.
Okay, so it travels from Paris out into the world. How did it fare in translation, especially into English? There's an interesting story there, right? About censorship.
Yes, definitely. The first main English translation, which was anonymous, came out really quickly, 1846. But think about the timing. It lands smack in the middle of Victorian England.
Ah, so certain things might have been frowned upon.
Exactly. Victorian sensibilities meant that some elements in the original French text were just too much. They were altered or sometimes cut out completely because of the prevailing moral codes.
So the version most English readers knew for, what, almost 150 years wasn't even the full story. It was cleaned up.
Pretty much, yeah. A sanitized version. Which is why the 1996 translation by Robin Buss is so important.
What did Buss do?
Well, two key things. First, he updated the language, made it feel more current for modern readers. But crucially, he restored all that suppressed content.
Like what, for example?
The most significant example is probably the references to Eugenie Danglars. Her lesbian characteristics and behavior were pretty much erased in the earlier translations.
Wow. The Victorians just couldn't handle that.
Apparently not in a mainstream novel like this, they cut it, which actually obscures part of Dumas' point about the moral decay within these supposedly respectable families.
Okay, before we get Dante's escaping and plotting, let's talk about where this whole idea of elaborate revenge fits in, literarily speaking. Dumas wasn't working in a vacuum, right?
Not at all. He was definitely tapping into a long, powerful tradition. The whole concept of honor and what happens when it's violated, that's ancient.
Like duels and things.
Well, yeah, but broader, too. Think about Spanish Golden Age drama. Lope de Vega, writing way back in 1609, he actually pointed out that stories about cases of honor are always the most powerful because they move all people strongly. Dumas just updated it for the 19th century. Less about swords, maybe, more about finance and reputation.
But the real bombshell, the thing that apparently sparked the whole novel, was a police file.
Yeah, this is incredible. The core inspiration came straight from the memoirs of a police archivist named Jacques Pouchet. His files contain this unbelievable true story that became the direct template for Edmond Dantes.
Which was?
The story of a man named Pierre Picot, a shoemaker in Nîmes back in 1807.
Okay.
Picot was engaged to marry a wealthy woman, but he apparently had 4 friends who were just consumed by jealousy. These 4 guys falsely denounced him as an English spy. This is during the Napoleonic Wars, remember?
Ooh, that's basically a death sentence, or close to it.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Picot gets thrown in prison, actually, in the Fenestrelle Fort, which seems to be the model for Dantes' prison stay for 7 years.
7 years. Just based on a lie.
Yep. And while he's in there, just like Dantes, he meets this dying fellow prisoner, an Italian cleric. And this cleric tells Picot about a hidden treasure in Milan.
No way. So the treasure part is real, too.
Seems like it, or at least the story of being told about one. Dumas clearly used that. Picot gets out in 1814, after Napoleon's fall. He changes his name, finds the treasure.
And goes after the friends?
Oh, yeah. He spends the next 10 years hunting them down. It's brutal. He stabs the first one, poisons the second. The third guy, named Lupien, who had actually married Picot's fiancée while he was locked up.
Oh, that's cold.
Right. Picot engineers his financial ruin and then ensures he's murdered.
Wow. So it's even darker than Dante's in some ways. But what about the fourth guy?
This is where Dumas really changes things. The fourth friend, sort of the Caderousse figure, actually figured out what Picot was doing. He documented the revenge killings, then tried to blackmail Picot. It ends with Picot being kidnapped and killed by this last conspirator.
So the real guy, Picot, he didn't win. He didn't find peace. His revenge consumed him.
Exactly. His story ends violently, tragically. He gets undone by the last loose end. Dumas takes that raw, brutal reality and elevates it. Dantes gets the intellect, the planning, the almost supernatural resources, not just to get revenge, but to survive it, to control it, and ultimately find a kind of peace Picot never did.
That's a fascinating difference. He makes the revenge survivable for the protagonist.
And it wasn't just Picot. Other real elements found their way in. the Abbé Faria character, apparently inspired by a real priest with a similar life story who died around 1819. Though the real one probably didn't leave a map to a massive treasure.
Probably not.
And those really disturbing poisoning plots within the Villefort family. Dumas seems to have based those on another true crime story Pouchet mentioned, about a family being systematically poisoned. So these weren't just dreamed up out of nowhere.
And the setting for Dante's own imprisonment, the Chateau d'If, that's a real place, right?
Oh, very real and iconic. It's this imposing fortress on an island just off the coast of Marseille, built way back in 1524 by King Francis I.
Not originally as a prison.
No, as a fortress.
Yeah.
But later, it became a state prison. It's isolation, surrounded by the sea. It was meant to be escape-proof. It's the perfect physical symbol for Dante's situation, the death of his old life, his total isolation.
14 years he spends there, in that grim place.
14 years. It's what breaks him, but also what allows Faria to remake him. The sea is right there, symbolizing freedom, but the stone walls represent this crushing, inescapable injustice. Until he escapes, of course.
Okay, let's zoom in on that moment of betrayal in 1815. The specific reasons Dantes gets targeted. It all seems to start because he's about to be promoted, right? First mate of the Pharaon.
Yeah, and the motives are almost depressingly petty, considering the devastating consequences. First, you've got Danglars, the ship's purser. For him, it's pure professional envy.
He wanted the captaincy.
Exactly. So, calculated career sabotage.
Yeah.
Then there's Fernand Mondego. He's Mercedes' cousin, and he's madly in love with her. His motive, simple romantic jealousy. Get rid of Dantes, his rival, and maybe he has a shot with Mercedes.
Do down. Who else?
Caderousse, the neighbor. His role is more about weakness, isn't it? General envy, maybe, but mostly just cowardice. He knows what Danglars and Fernand are plotting, but he just goes along with it. Doesn't speak up.
Accessory through silence.
Pretty much. But the real architect of Dantes' long-term doom, the one who seals the deal, is Gérard de Villefort, the deputy crown prosecutor.
And his motive is different, not just jealousy.
No, his is pure, ruthless self-preservation. It's all about protecting his career and his standing in that incredibly volatile political climate.
This is where that letter comes in again. The one Dantes is carrying unknowingly from Napoleon on Elba. It's addressed to someone named Noirtier.
Yes, and Noirtier is Villefort's father. And Noirtier is a known, high-profile Bonapartist, a supporter of Napoleon. Villefort, meanwhile, has built his entire career, his whole public persona, on being fiercely loyal to the king, an ultra-royalist.
So if it comes out that his own father is involved in a Bonapartist plot right when Napoleon's back,
it would completely destroy Villefort, his career, his reputation, possibly even put his life in danger. It's instant political annihilation.
So to save his own skin,
he burns the letter.
Yeah.
And condemns Dantes, not just to prison, but to secret, lifelong imprisonment in the Chateau d'If. No trial, no record, make him disappear, bury the connection forever.
And that's it. Dante's gone. For years, just despair. Until Abbé Faria.
Yes, Faria is the absolute turning point. The source material really emphasizes this. It wasn't just a quick chat. It was 8 years. 8 years of intense education.
Right, not just telling him about the treasure.
No, far from it. Faria teaches him everything. History, science, philosophy, languages, economics, politics, manners. He transforms Dantes from this naive, sort of instinctive young man into a highly educated, sophisticated, almost aristocratic intellectual, capable of moving in high society, understanding complex systems, and crucially, planning and executing this incredibly intricate long-term revenge. Faria gave him the knowledge and the plan. The treasure gave him the means.
Okay, so flash forward to 1838. Dantes emerges as the Count of Monte Cristo. Rich beyond imagining, seemingly all-knowing, and he starts taking them down.
And importantly, his method isn't usually direct violence, not like Picot's. It's more about orchestrating things so his enemies destroy themselves, using their own flaws, greed, ambition, past sins against them.
Let's start with Fernand Mondego now, the Count of Morcerf. Living the high life.
Yeah, he's bought himself a title, a military reputation, vast wealth, all built on a lie about his heroism in the Greek War of Independence.
But the Count knows the truth.
He does. And he uses public opinion, the press, and the political system against him. His key weapon is Haiti.
Haiti. She was connected to his past crime.
Intimately. She's the daughter of Ali Pasha of Janina, the Greek ruler Fernand was supposedly serving. But Fernand actually betrayed Ali Pasha, helped get him killed, surrendered his city to the Turks, and then sold Haiti and her mother into slavery.
And AD testifies.
Yes, as an eyewitness, right before the French legislature. It's devastating. Fernand's heroic facade just crumbles. Public disgrace.
What happens then?
His wife, Mercedes, who had recognized the Count as Dantes earlier, finally leaves him, taking their son Albert with her. She rejects the tainted title and fortune. Fernand is left completely alone, stripped of everything. He goes home and shoots himself.
So his downfall comes from the exposure of his original sin, betrayal.
Exactly. Next up, Danglars, the banker, the money man.
And the Count was after his money. This feels very modern almost, a critique of finance.
It really does. Dumas shows how obsessed Danglars is with wealth. The Count, posing as this incredibly wealthy client, first gets Danglars financially dependent on him, setting up huge lines of credit.
Lures him in.
Precisely. Then comes the clever part, using the technology of the day, the optical telegraph.
Right, the semaphore system. Not electric, but fast for the time.
Super fast.
Yeah.
It was the cutting edge of communication. The Count bribes a telegraph operator, pays him off handsomely, a life annuity, to ensure his silence and cooperation.
To do what?
To send a false message down the line. A piece of fake political news about Spain, something that would impact the stock market, the bourse.
Ah, insider trading, 19th century style.
Exactly. Danglars gets this hot tip, thinks he's got an edge, and makes massive disastrous investments based on it. He loses a fortune. It triggers his financial collapse.
It's amazing how relevant that feels using high-speed comms for market manipulation.
Totally. The tech changes, the crime stays the same. But Danglars' humiliation isn't over yet. He embezzles 5 million francs from the hospital funds he manages and tries to flee the country.
But the Count catches up with him.
Through an intermediary.
Yeah.
He gets Danglars kidnapped by Luigi Vampa, this Italian bandit chief who owes the Count a favor. And Vampa doesn't torture him physically. He tortures him financially. He holds Danglars captive and charges him insane prices for basic survival. 100,000 francs for a chicken, 25,000 for a glass of water, until almost all the stolen money is gone.
A perfect reversal of his greed.
Exactly. But then something shifts. Danglars, broken and starving, genuinely seems to repent. He confesses his initial betrayal of Dantes, and the Count lets him go.
Really? He doesn't destroy him completely.
No. He forgives him, in a way. Allows him to leave with 50,000 francs, a tiny fraction of his former wealth, but enough to survive. It's a significant moment, showing Dantes may be moving beyond pure vengeance, a big difference from the real Picot story.
Okay, now Villefort, the prosecutor. His downfall seems the most complex, the most personal.
It is, because it's tied directly to his deepest moral failures and family secrets. It's not a quick hit. It's this slow, horrifying implosion of his entire life.
It starts with his past catching up.
Yes. Remember that affair he had with Madame Danglars? It resulted in an illegitimate child. Villefort, terrified of scandal, tried to bury the baby alive in his garden right after it was born.
Horrifying.
Utterly. But the baby was saved, secretly. And the Count's own steward, Bertuccio, knows this story and reveals it at a crucial moment. But the real public destruction comes later. That illegitimate son, Benedetto, grew up to be a criminal, a murderer. He gets arrested and put on trial, going by the alias Andrea Cavalcanti, and who's presiding over the trial.
Oh no, Villefort.
Villefort himself. And right there, in the packed courtroom, Benedetto dramatically reveals that the esteemed public prosecutor, Gerard de Villefort, is his father.
The ultimate public disgrace. His reputation is just obliterated.
Instantly. And while this is happening publicly, his private life is also collapsing into a nightmare.
The poisonings.
Yes. His second wife, Eloise, is obsessed with ensuring her son, young Edouard, inherits everything. So she starts systematically poisoning other family members. The Saint-Méran even tries to poison Villefort's daughter, Valentine.
And Villefort figures it out.
He does. He confronts Eloise, tells her she must take her own life or face public justice. But she, in despair or defiance, she poisons not only herself but also their young son, Edouard.
Oh, the innocent child dies too. That's brutal.
It's the tragic climax.
Yeah.
Villefort comes home to find them both dead. And it's at this moment, over the bodies of his wife and innocent child, that the Count chooses to reveal his true identity to him.
Edmond Dantes.
Yes. The shock, the weight of all his crimes crashing down, the realization of who brought it all about, it completely shatters Villefort's mind. He goes mad. His attempts to bury his sins have literally destroyed him and his family.
Just devastating. Okay, finally, Caderousse, the cowardly neighbor.
Caderousse is interesting because the Count, initially disguised as the Abbé Busoni, actually tries to give him a chance. He gives him a valuable diamond as a reward for information about the original plot.
Gives him a fresh start.
Exactly. A chance to be honest, to live comfortably. But Caderousse's greed is just too strong. He wastes the money, commits more crimes, including murder, ends up back in prison.
Does the Count help him again?
Ironically, yes. Disguised as Lord Wilmore, he helps Caderousse escape.
Yeah,
But what does Caderousse do immediately? He tries to rob the Count's house in Paris.
he never learns.
Never. And during that robbery attempt, he gets fatally stabbed. It's not by the Count, but by Benedetto, Villefort's criminal son, who happens to be his partner in crime.
So Caderousse dies at the hands of another villain.
Yes, but the Count is there, disguised as Abbé Busoni again, as Caderousse is dying. And his final act of punishment isn't physical.
What is it?
Just before Caderousse breathes his last, the Count leans in and whispers his true name, Edmond Dantes.
Ah. So his final moment is realizing who orchestrated his end, the man he helped betray.
Exactly. The final torture is spiritual, not physical. The realization that his own greed and cowardice led him right back to the justice he deserved, delivered by the victim himself.
Amidst all this destruction, though, there are people who Dantes helps. The loyal ones.
Yes, that's crucial. The Morel family. Dante's old employer, who was always kind to him. The Count anonymously saves Monsieur Morel from financial ruin and suicide. Remember the ship, the Pharaon, miraculously returning full of cargo.
Right. And he helped Morel's daughter Julie get married, leaving her dowry as Sinbad the Sailor.
Exactly. Pure loyalty rewarded. And that thread continues with Maximilien Morel, the son.
He falls in love with Valentine, Villefort's daughter.
Yes, the innocent daughter who was targeted by her stepmother, Heloise. Valentine survives the poisoning attempts thanks to help from her grandfather, Noirtier, and crucially, the Count, who fakes her death to protect her.
So the Count saves her.
He does. And in the end, on the island of Monte Cristo itself, he reunites Maximilian and Valentine, gives them a huge portion of his fortune, and basically sets them up for a happy life together. It's the positive resolution amidst the darkness.
Looking back at all that, the sheer scale of the revenge is overwhelming. But there's a shift in Dantes himself, isn't there? He starts out believing he's almost divine, an agent of providence.
Absolutely. That's probably the core philosophical struggle in the novel. For a long time, Dantes operates under this powerful delusion that he's transcended normal human morality. He sees himself as an instrument of God's justice.
Like he has the right to judge and punish on that scale. Gramsci called him a precursor of the Nietzschean superhome, right? Someone above the usual rules.
Exactly. He believes he's been chosen, empowered by his suffering and his wealth, to balance the scales. He's not just seeking personal revenge. He thinks he's enacting cosmic justice.
But that belief, it breaks down, doesn't it?
It shatters completely. And the moment it happens is when he's confronted by the death of an innocent young Edouard de Villefort, Heloise's son.
The boy she poisoned along with herself.
Yes. All the Count's meticulous planning, his wealth, his knowledge, it worked perfectly against the guilty. But when faced with this innocent victim, he tries to intervene. He has this powerful elixir, this potion he believes can revive the near dead. He tries to use it on Edouard.
And it fails.
It fails. He cannot bring the boy back.
Yeah.
And in that moment, he's forced to confront the absolute limit of his power. He can destroy, he can manipulate fortunes and reputations, but he cannot grant life. That power belongs only to God, not to the Count of Monte Cristo.
So the elixir failing is really the failure of his whole agent of providence identity. He realizes he's still human, still limited.
Precisely, it's the moral climax. He has to accept he can't control life and death, only consequences.
You know, thinking about Danglars and Villefort, the novel feels incredibly sharp about society's obsession with money, even back then.
Oh, definitely. Dumas is showing that this modern society of 1844 was already, as the source notes say, faithful to the cult of the absolute power of money.
Yeah, like how Danglars only really gets upset about his wife's supposed affair when he thinks it might have cost him money. The infidelity itself barely registers.
Exactly. Money is the ultimate measure of value, the only real driver for someone like him. It feels very current.
And that ties into the high-tech element, too, the telegraph.
Right, the use of the optical telegraph for what is essentially insider trading. It just highlights how controlling information, especially through the fastest means available, has always been a source of corrupt power.
It wasn't just a random plot device. It was Dumas commenting on how technology, even 19th century tech, could be weaponized for financial crime.
Absolutely. Just like the internet or high-speed trading today, the tools change, the impulse to exploit them for unfair gain doesn't.
Another recurring theme is identity, all the changing names.
Yes, that's huge. Dantes himself has so many aliases. Abbé Busoni, Lord Wilmore, Sinbad the Sailor, the Count.
Each one serving a specific purpose in his plan.
Right, but initially, it also suggests he's lost his core self. He is the revenge plot, defined only by these different masks, rather than having a single true identity left after the trauma of his imprisonment.
And his enemies do it too, don't they? Changing names, buying titles.
They do. Villefort changed his name earlier in life to distance himself from his Bonapartist father. Fernand becomes Count de Morcerf. Danglars becomes Baron Danglars. They're all trying to construct new, respectable identities to cover up their pasts or their morally dubious origins. It shows this obsession with appearance and status in that society.
And finally, we should touch on the symbolism of water. The sea is everywhere in this book.
It's fundamental. Dante's escape from the Chateau d'If, plunging into the sea sewn inside Faria's burial sack. That's not just an escape.
It's a rebirth.
Exactly. The text calls it a second baptism. It's the symbolic death of the innocent sailor, Edmond Dantes, and the emergence from the depths of this new, powerful, vengeful being.
And the sea remains his domain, doesn't it? His yacht, his island.
Yes. The sea offers him freedom, mobility, anonymity. He becomes this almost stateless figure, able to move across the world, execute his plans without being tied to any one place. The water is both his escape route and his new element. The impact of this novel is immense, isn't it? It was translated almost instantly into practically every modern language.
And it's basically never been out of print since the 1840s. That kind of staying power is rare.
It really is. And it wasn't just popular. Its actual plot structure, the whole wrongful imprisonment, escape, hidden identity, elaborate revenge. That became a kind of template.
Yeah, you can see its DNA in other major works, right?
Absolutely. Lew Wallace's Ben-Hur from 1880. Very similar arc, betrayal, suffering, return, and retribution.
And even in science fiction.
Yep. Alfred Bester's classic 1956 sci-fi novel, The Star's My Destination, often called Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger in the UK is widely seen as a direct sci-fi retelling of Monte Cristo.
And didn't Stephen Fry do a modern version too?
He did. The Star's Tennis Balls from 2000. It explicitly updates the Dante's story for the contemporary world. The core narrative is just that compelling, it keeps getting reinvented.
So after all the destruction, all the intricate plots, Dantes does eventually find some kind of resolution, right? He doesn't stay the vengeful count forever.
No, he doesn't. Having dealt with his enemies and having learned that hard lesson about his own limitations with Edouard's death, he pivots. He ensures the happiness of the next generation, Maximilian and Valentine. Sets them up for life.
And then
He chooses to move on. He essentially sheds the identity of the Count. He decides to leave Europe, heading east with Haiti.
Haiti, Ali Pasha's daughter, who helped expose Fernand.
Yes, she has declared her love for him, and he seems to reciprocate. He chooses connection, love, a future, over dwelling on the past and the vengeance. He finds peace.
And he leaves behind a final piece of wisdom, doesn't he? The culmination of everything he's learned.
He does. It's the message he gives to Maximilian, but it feels like it's meant for the reader, too. It sums up the entire journey from despair to power, and finally, to understanding.
What is it again?
All human wisdom is contained in these two words: wait and hope.
Confiar y esperar.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, that brings us towards the end of this particular deep dive into the anatomy of vengeance in The Count of Monte Cristo. We've really charted that incredible arc from the initial betrayal, driven by politics and petty jealousy.
Through the transformation in prison, the rise of this almost godlike figure of retribution.
And then, crucially, that final realization of human limits, leading to a kind of forgiveness or at least peace. It really is a story about understanding happiness only after you've known the absolute depths of misery.
It truly is. It compares those two states of being.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Dantes goes through hell, orchestrates this incredible decades-long plan, and comes out the other side with that final wisdom, wait and hope. But achieving that wisdom, realizing his own limitations, involved the death of an innocent young Edward. So the question is, was the wisdom worth the price? Does the death of that child forever complicate Dantes' journey? Or was that terrible loss somehow necessary for him to reach that final profound understanding?
Something to think about as you perhaps revisit the novel or maybe pick it up for the first time.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more analysis, pulling apart the sources behind the stories you thought you knew.